Hi, welcome all to this panel about academia and industry. It is my absolute pleasure to share this time with you and my distinguished panel. Just to give you a sense of what is this about, it's a panel where the members participating and panelists have held all sorts of different positions, both in academia and industry, and they have their unique perspective to contribute and help you as a student or a faculty that is just starting to get a sense of the lay of the land and have an idea of the different opportunities, pros, cons of the different career paths, etc. So no topic is off limits. You can ask us any questions. Before introducing my panel, I wanted to say that please feel free to use the Q&A portion of the Teams system so that you can ask us questions. We will devote about the first half of the panel to have a free discussion between all of us, but then we'll like to concentrate on the questions you have for us. So again, use the Q&A session feature on the Teams channel. And as you can say, this is probably my first time doing this sort of live events, so bear with me. So again, my distinct pleasure to introduce Valerie Tailor from Argonne National Laboratory, Armando Solar-Lezama from CSAIL, and Kristin Lauter from research at Redmond. I am Gonzalo Ramos from research at Redmond as well. Instead of doing lengthy introductions, I'm going to start with the first question. So please introduce yourself and let us know your career path that led you at where you are right now. And we can start with Valerie.
Thank you, Gonzalo. So I'll just to give a little background about myself. So first, let me say thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here. So after finishing the PhD from UC Berkeley, I took a faculty position at Northwestern University. So I was a faculty member in the EECS department for about 11 years. And my research is in the area of performance analysis and modeling for large-scale parallel scientific applications. So really in the area of high-performance computing. And so while at Northwestern, being an HPC, I had a joint appointment with Argonne National Laboratory, which was great, you know, because they have the facilities, they also have the science, as well as the researchers. So I would usually be out at Argonne about 2 to 3 times a week. So it was pretty often. I did decide to leave Northwestern and to go to Texas A&M. And at that time I left, it helped with a 2-body opportunity. And also I took on the position of department head for computer science at Texas A&M. And so I was at Texas A&M for about 13 years. So I stayed on as department head, and then I still continued my research. And there I also took on the position of Senior Associate Dean for Academics in the College of Engineering. But while visiting Argonne, so I still stayed in contact with Argonne. During the sabbatical, I spent time at Argonne doing research, which was great. So I was back visiting Argonne to give a research talk. And Rick Stevens, who is the associate lab director, and we worked together a great deal when I was at Northwestern, asked about returning, which was a really good opportunity. And so now I'm back at Argonne National Laboratory as the division director for the Mathematics and Computer Science division. So things have a way, I think, with my career path of going full circle, where I collaborated with researchers in MCS when I was at Northwestern, and now I have a leadership role at Argonne. And I also want to say that I'm also the CEO and president of the Center for Minorities and People with Disabilities in IT. So a really full career.
That's amazing. Thank you, Valerie. So Armando, what is your story?
Sure. So I actually am originally from Mexico. my parents actually migrated to Texas when I was 15, and so I went to high school in Texas, and from there I went to Texas A&M. So I was actually an undergraduate there when Valerie joined as department head, and then from there I moved to UC Berkeley. So in the beginning, I was working on high performance computing also. That's what I started doing research on as an undergraduate at Texas A&M, and then I moved to Berkeley, and I moved to more programming systems research. I started working on the problem of program synthesis, and I was there until 2008. I graduated actually with my PhD in December of 2008. And then ever since then, I've been a faculty member at MIT. I just became full professor this year, which is kind of nice. Sort of my last promotion, hopefully. But since then, I've been working mainly at the intersection between programming systems, machine learning, and AI. On the one hand, looking at techniques in programming languages and how they can be leveraged to do better learning, either be able to learn more efficiently or be able to learn with stronger guarantees, as well as leveraging ideas from and techniques from machine learning in order to build better programming tools, do more automated programming.
Great, thank you for sharing that with us. Kristin, your turn. Tell us a bit about your path.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me. There's a little bit of an echo. I don't know if anyone else can hear that, but. So I'm very pleased to be here with you today. Thanks for joining us. My path is a little different than a lot of my other colleagues in a kind of a computer science research lab like Microsoft Research. So I'm actually a mathematician. So I did all of my degrees in mathematics. I went to the University of Chicago when I was very young. I graduated from high school when I was 15. And when I got to Chicago, I always like to tell this story. I almost dropped out of mathematics. I was placed into an honors calculus sequence, and I didn't think I could handle it. But luckily, my professor was a woman who was not about to let me drop out. And she told me, no problem, just stick with it. And she's currently the president of the American Mathematical Society, by the way. So I was pretty lucky. I had a really good mentor. If I'd had another professor, I might have just dropped out of mathematics. And then similarly, I definitely wouldn't have gone to graduate school if one of my professors in undergrad had not encouraged me. And so eventually I actually went to grad school at University of Chicago also after doing a year in France, study abroad. So I was really lucky, and I enjoyed being at the University of Chicago and in academia, doing a lot of teaching. And then I went to the University of Michigan as an assistant professor. And I really did love teaching, probably more than most other aspects of the career. But the interesting thing was that in a research track, I found it completely unacceptable, the kind of hypocrisy in academia that you were employed as a professor to be, you know, a researcher and a teacher, and your teaching was not valued. I mean, it was very explicit that you're doing a good job on teaching would count against you in your research career. And I was so angered by that, and I found it to be so unacceptable that it made me very open to the idea of going into an industrial research lab where the metrics were clear. I was supposed to do research and publish and make new discoveries. So the opportunity came for me to come to Microsoft Research because although my background was in number theory and algebraic geometry, I had developed a course on coding theory and cryptography that I taught at the University of Michigan. And I got a lot of engineering students in my class, and I started to learn more about the real world and cryptography. and that seemed really exciting. So I took the opportunity when it came up to come to Microsoft Research. So I've been at Microsoft Research for 21 years, and I've been the research manager for the cryptography group for more than 12 years now. Along the way, I also have done a significant amount of work on behalf of women in mathematics in particular, but also women in general in science. So I was the president of the Association for Women in Mathematics, which is a 50-year-old professional society with about 5,000 members. So I was president from 2015 to 2017. I also started a lot of major initiatives for women in mathematics, including getting a 5-year NSF $1 million grant for the AWM to run research collaboration conferences for women. And we've established almost 25 networks actually for women researchers in mathematics, including more than 2,000 women researchers around the world. So that's one of my proudest accomplishments in my career. And being at Microsoft Research has allowed me to also expand into other directions. So I've, in the last 2 years, started a new initiative on urban innovation, which is really exciting about the future of cities and urban environments, and lots of related issues, including equity and social justice and environmental things like climate change. And so it's very, very exciting. So thank you.
That is cool. Thank you so much. I guess I'll end up with me. For those who saw the opening lecture, I spoke a bit about my path, so I'll be brief a little bit in this one. So I grew up, born and raised in Argentina. After that, the times were not that great for somebody with a computer science degree. So I decided to, okay, well, if I cannot get a job there, I might as well dial up the education notch to 11. So I decided to go and get a PhD in the North American continent. Canada seemed like a great place to go. So I was lucky enough to be admitted to the University of Toronto, where I got my master's and PhD in computer science. Especially, my history is interesting in twist of turns. I did a bachelor's in compression and signal processing in Argentina. But then when I moved to Canada, I did a master's in visualization for partial differential equations, and then I moved into human-computer interaction. So my brain goes all over the place. So while doing my PhD, I had the fortune to do internships at Microsoft, where my mind got first open to the possibility of work outside of academia. My dream was to become a professor when I started this path into the PhD. I really wanted to be a professor. But then after that, the questions started to grow. Like, what are there any other paths for me? So as I did my internship and I kept working and I got another internship, and I got again the fortune to be selected as a fellow for the PhD fellowship way back then, before the iPhone. Decided that, well, I would really like to say, well, academia and maybe a Microsoft Research would be great places to work. As the face dictate, and you will find for all of you in the audience, sometimes what you want is not what you get, so you have to be nimble. And as Sue and Neil was saying in the prior meeting, you're on this boat, and the water sometimes takes you gently in different places. So after school, I went to Microsoft, another MSR. I worked in the incubator organization called Live Labs. If you imagine like a startup incubator, that was the kind of organization where I was an applied scientist, innovating and creating new products, new ideas, very applied. After that, the recession in the US hit, and that lab got disbanded. So the water gently pushed me into a different direction. I went into a more deep product-based team in Microsoft, the online service division at the time, where I had the chance to learn from designers, engineers, managers, on all sorts of roles and skills I didn't know that were interesting about developing products for maps, for mobile, for computational photography, and to a bit share what I learned as well in my expertise. After a few years there, I got an opportunity to be part of a leadership team in an innovation lab, similar role, but a bit of a different mandate at Amazon, where the task was to invent the future of shopping 2 to 5 years down the road. So along with other like-minded peers, we sort of created crazy ideas that many of them I just cannot speak of. If you imagine having a smart speaker in your closet that tells you what you should wear, that's the kind of things that we thought at the time. Now that's probably, oh, of course, that is what you were thinking about. And after a few years there, I thought, well, looking back, it happens that I'm not a professor and I'm not an MSR, but I'm happy. This is actually great. I've got all the skills of problem solving I can apply and help people and learn. This is a great job. And of course, the moment I said that, I got approached by Microsoft Research because the opportunity presented itself to be part of a team starting work on something called machine teaching, which is a way of making easy for non-machine learning experts to create machine learning models. And my first response to that, as I said in the opening lecture, is that, well, to my boss at the time, I'm not a machine learning expert. Why do you want me? Gonzo, because we have enough of those. You're a human-computer interaction person. This is about humans teaching to machines. We need to know about people. So do you want this? And I'm like, sounds like a great, scary opportunity. And that is if you can ask us in your Q&A, how do you choose to change directions? And my answer to that is like, what really gives me a little bit of a fear in my stomach? Like, is this going to be a risky thing? And at the end of the day, those are the interesting opportunities, and this was one of them. And then I took it. And 4 years to the date, I've been learning lots, doing work that I really love. And at Microsoft Research, that place I really intended to go at the beginning, but the space of life didn't. It was not a straight line. It took me a bit of a twist and turns to go there. So I'll stop it there, and then I don't know if anybody else wants to add to your initial answers. If not, we can move to some of the follow-up questions. What do you think? Okay, amazing. So each one of you, can you explain or pinpoint, because a lot of the time the questions we get from students is, what are the difference between academia or industry? I'm not sold about what are the pros and cons. I'm not sure about what my path should be. What are, in your opinion, the difference between academic position and an industrial position? And we could start. You can color that answer in any way you would like as well. So let's start with Valerie.
Okay. Thank you. I'm happy to start. And it's very interesting because when I finished a PhD at Berkeley, I thought about going into industry. And so, but my advisor was the one to convince me about going into academia. So he set up interviews for academia, and I set up interviews for industry, which was really good. And what I found when I was interviewing, in both academia and industry, is that oftentimes when I interviewed in industry, I would talk about my research, but then we would have a conversation about how the work that I was doing would fit into some of the ongoing initiatives and projects at the particular company. And when I interviewed in academia, we talked about how my research fit in with the department, but I also had to talk about how my research fit in terms of looking at funding opportunities. So I looked at NSF, I looked at their roadmap at the time when I was finishing. I looked at the roadmap of DARPA, DOE, your different funding agencies. And I found that very exciting in terms of really charting out the plans with respect to my research. And so that's the part that excited me about going into academia. And I think also the joy of teaching, of interacting with students and exciting students about topics. So, and I think too, in having students, especially with the grad classes, having students bring up novel ideas or bring up new ways to approach problems. So that part was very exciting. What I also found too was going into academia, I also collaborated with industry. So I had collaborations, for example, with IBM and other companies as well. In some cases, I had to sign an NDA, but being in academia, it wasn't a conflict of interest to have that collaboration with industry. So, you know, I think for me, it was that joy of teaching and research. But I also want to go back to, I think, with Kristin, in terms of valuing research, I think of valuing teaching, I think it depends upon the university. Because, for example, at Texas A&M, they very much care about your teaching. So when we reviewed promotion and tenure packages, we looked at the teaching evaluation. And if someone had poor teaching, that raised the red flag. And even when people interviewed, during their interview, the evaluation was that part of the interview was saying how would they interact in terms of students and answer questions. So I think it depends upon the university as to the value on teaching. I also found that at Northwestern that there was a value also placed on teaching, which was good. So I think it becomes, you know, an individual aspect, but for me, it was that evaluation to have the teaching be in the classroom as well as the research. And so now I'm at Argonne, but I do have an appointment at University of Chicago as well, a research faculty appointment. So there's
So Armando, do you have, sorry.
Sure. So I've spent a lot more time in academia than in industry. When I was a graduate student, I used to spend I spent actually most of my summers at IBM, but most of my experience has been in academia. And I would say the first order difference between academia and industry is graduate students. I think the relationship between advisor and graduate student is something that I think is hard to replicate in industry. Right, you get somebody who's coming usually directly from undergraduate, sometimes for spending a little bit of time in industry, but you have the opportunity to really work with students on a long-term basis. There's time to try out things that don't work and to throw ideas out there that after a little bit of work you realize, hey, yeah, that was not such a great idea. Let's try something different, right? And growing together, learning new things and attacking new directions and new problems is something very different from even if you are in an industry research lab where you have interns that come in every summer, but it's not quite the same kind of relationship, right? And I think even with undergraduates, not just during teaching them in classes, but also getting them involved in research projects and seeing them become excited about research, and then going to graduate school, and then at some point becoming successful researchers. I think it's a very rewarding thing. I think another big difference between industry and academia is, at some level, when you are in a university, the university's interest is for you to become a well-known researcher, right? That's the number one thing that the university cares about, together with teaching. I think MIT places a very significant emphasis on teaching, but I think that visibility is gives you a lot of opportunities that you learn to appreciate over time, I think.
Cool. Kristin, what is your take?
Well, I'll follow up a little bit on the teaching angle. Just a caveat, you have to remember I did get my PhD 25 years ago. So, things could have changed a little bit in this time, but also, like Valerie said, I think it very much depends on the university. And certainly in what I was experiencing was the attitude at elite math departments. And I don't know how much that has changed. But I would say in terms of the difference between academia and industry labs, that is a fundamental one. So I believe that if you're going to be at a university, the mission of the university is partly to educate the next generation of students and scientists in your area. And of course, support the research faculty in the sense that your mission is to advance the state of the art. So if you were to look at the way that compares to your mission, if you're in an industrial research lab, you're working for a company. If you're lucky to be working for a place like Microsoft Research, which supports open basic research, then it means that you also have, as part of your mission, advance the state of the art and kind of create the future of computing. But it also, the analog to serving, the education of the general public, the analog is to, promote the use of your cutting edge technologies in the product teams and to kind of create the future of the company as well. So I think it's good to think about it in terms of the mission and what are you aligned to. So a second thing I think is good to think about is the resources. And then I'll say maybe my third comment will be about the environment, like the research environment. So in terms of resources, the nice thing in a research lab is that you don't have to apply for grants. You're not trying to get public funding for your work, but if you want to have successful projects that have impact, you want to be able to hire more researchers or interns. Your source of support comes through having impactful projects that build, the future of some product or other. So you need to be able to build good relationships with people in product teams. And I think that people skills are extremely important in the industrial lab setting. And for those reasons, one of our former leaders said, technology transfer is not about technology, it's about people and having good people skills and being able to collaborate. So then, and I guess implicit in what I was saying, comparing the resources is in academia, to get more resources for your research and such, and to support graduate students and things like that, you're probably going to need to apply for grants. And this can be time consuming and competitive and difficult. I mean, I found that the system felt very much stacked against me in elite mathematics, and both in terms of faculty positions at elite universities, editorial positions, and elite journals, and something which is very much tied to that, which is being able to get support for your research through NSF grants. And so with those three things being very much tied together and not having evolved very much in the last 25 years, I felt that the path forward was much harder there to argue for the importance of my work and to be able to get the resources to support it. It was much harder there than it has been in industry. And so then the final thing I'll comment on is the work environment. So I've had well over 30 PhD interns come and work with me over the last 20 years. And almost uniformly, people react to the difference in the research environment. So we've learned over time and we've evolved so that we have a lot of projects that involve multiple interns and multiple PhD research mentors. And the graduate students that I have had in my group tend to really enjoy this very fast-paced research environment where they're getting to interact with other highly motivated students and research mentors. Now that very well could be the case in certain research groups in your university, and if you are part of that dynamic environment, that's awesome, and I hope you are. But I don't think it's always the case, and I think it's almost never the case in mathematics. And so for me, a lot of times the students have experienced quite a culture change coming to Microsoft. I think other research labs are probably similar in terms of that fast-paced environment and really collaborative approach, which can be really fun. So that's what I'll say.
Those were all excellent questions, and I tried to complement the best. I don't have academic experience. I've never been a professor, but I've been in industry, quote unquote, and I will qualify that there's research, there's Microsoft research, and there's industry. So there are different things. So research at Google or Facebook or other companies or Amazon may look very different from the way it looks at Microsoft research. Working at a product group at Microsoft looks different than working at Microsoft research. So I will qualify those things, but the first things to note, each one of you is like, ask yourself, why do you want to be in academia? What are the values that you have? What are the things? Do you love mentoring students? Is that what really enriches your life? Is it about advancing scientific knowledge? Is that what you really want to do? So ask yourself those hard questions. I know that a lot of us procrastinate on those, but you need to ask yourself, know yourself, to know how to best direct yourself in your future. So in terms of industry, whenever you guys were asking about the difference between academia and industry, my panel did a great job about Microsoft research in industry. But if your passion is to solve problems, not to come up with them, but just to solve hard problems that someone else thought about, those are sometimes the kind of industrial positions that a PhD is well suited for. There's a lot of positions where PhDs can work that have nothing to do about doing fundamental research, but are about solving hard problems. It's about putting a paper into reality, make it work at scale. Those are hard problems that doesn't come easy, and only you are actually qualified and trained to do. You just don't know you are, but that's where you can be if you want to. So just want to bring attention to those kind of roles and ask yourself again, what is that will give you pleasure and have fun moving forward? Again, mentoring, and Kristin knows I satisfy my professorial aspirations by mentoring students, even high schoolers, and nothing gives them more pleasure than when they get accepted into university and like, yes, that's job done. But if your job is to hack or to sweat on the soldering iron, get that picture clear. And that is a segue for my next question. A lot of students ask, I still haven't made up my mind about academia or industry or research in industry. What is the best way to market myself to those positions? How different my CV or application package needs to be for each one of them? I don't know, Valerie, you have something to say. So yes.
Okay. So. Yes, I wanted to go back, if I can, just a little bit to the previous question.
Of course.
Yes, and that was, I realized we were talking about industry and academia, but I also want to present a third dimension, and that's the national laboratories, especially the Department of Energy national labs. I'm just trying to check. Am I still with you?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Okay, I just had to make certain networks. But the national labs provides an environment where you're focused on research, and it can be fundamental research as well as applied research. We have both. So for example, in my division, we have applied mathematics and computer science. Some of the work is foundational work, like for example, in optimization methods and PDEs. Some of it is more applied, using more machine learning, looking at different storage areas. So I do want to present that as a third option as you're considering academia, industry. There's also the national labs. National labs are mission driven, and that is looking at energy and national security, but that's a very broad mission. And some researchers in the national labs, like myself, you can have an affiliation, a joint faculty, a joint appointment with the university that gives you that opportunity to teach. So I just want to present that as a third dimension.
That is an excellent comment. So thank you for adding that to the conversation. Let's jump again to that question that I segue from the last one. What do you, in your opinion, what is the best way to market oneself. Imagine yourself in the shoes of a student and says, I want to apply to a national laboratory, either this fundamental research area or just applied research or just industry. What are the best ways to tailor your application package to have the best chance of being seen or considered for that role? So Valerie, you can take it from there, or.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll go. I'll follow one after.
Do we want to rotate it? And
yes, because I think Kristin was just about.
Kristin, why don't you jump in?
Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in. So I would say I could comment, I think, on applying to a research lab. And it goes along also with what I mentioned, the kind of distinction on what the mission is. If you're applying to join, a research group, the key thing that you need to do is you need to know what that research group does and how you fit into and can potentially contribute. So in the past, I've seen a lot of students make the mistake of kind of coming out of their academic environment where their main criteria was, to have some prestigious research results in some kind of archaic, field of mathematics or whatever, and thinking that their kind of innate smarts are going to be enough, to make them attractive and get them hired. And that is true. I mean, people want to hire you, because you are incredibly smart. That is true. But you also have to kind of show that you're interested in and willing to work on the area, the research area where you're applying for the job. And even better, you should show that you have some qualifications, that you actually know something about this research area, or that you've published in this area, or that you've written some code and put it on, GitHub or something. So public artifacts that you can point to that say, here's the code that I wrote, to do such and such, or here's the paper that I'm working on, or here's the conference presentation I've done. And that shows that you can connect to whatever the person or people that you're planning to want to be able to work with. And I also think that goes hand in hand with some kind of personal communication. The problem is when you just submit your application into a system, that the bulk of applications can be so large that you actually are not guaranteed that it gets seen by the right people. Lucky if you do, that's great. But to be able to reach out with an email, even if you have to be persistent, I mean, you don't want to be obnoxious or bug people, but to really reach out with that personal email that shows that you're interested in, how you're interested and why you would want to work with that person or in that research group. I think that makes a tremendous difference. And that's not something you can do at scale. You're not going to do that, to 100 different places. So I think that is a big difference with applying to academia, because if you're just going to be teaching, it's more scalable to just write a teaching statement and a diversity statement and those kinds of things and upload them to every department you're applying to. Whereas I think in industrial research labs, I do think it's a good idea to take the approach that I mentioned, which is much more personalized and targeted.
Cool. Armando, do you wanna follow up on that question? Your microphone is muted. Your microphone is muted, Armando.
Sorry. Yeah. So from the academic side, if your goal is to look for an academic position, the number one thing that people are looking for is academic impact, right? So what does that mean? So one aspect of that is papers in top venues, but I think one mistake that people sometimes make is to think that it's the number that matters, right? And people sometimes ask, like, okay, so how many papers are you looking for in a person to get an academic job? And there's certainly a lower bound. If you have 0 papers, that's too few. But when people are looking at applications, they're not looking at, okay, let's sort by number of papers and then start from the top. Instead, what people are looking at is, okay, what's the most exciting paper that really caught my eye at the last couple of conferences, right? What are the papers that people in the community are talking about and excited about and following up on? and you want to be one of the authors of those papers, ideally the first one. And so that's that matters more than how many there are. Is it really, do you have the kind of research results that people know about, that people are excited about? Now, one important aspect of that is doing the research is a really important part of that, but then also putting that research in front of the community is a really important aspect of that. It's not just about giving a stellar talk at the conference so that people remember this result. It's really going around talking to people about what your research result is, talking to people about possibilities for follow-on work. It's really being a member of the community in terms of putting your ideas out there and helping your ideas grow in other people's heads. Another really important aspect of an academic job search is your letters. So thinking early about who are going to be my letter writers, right? Who are people in the community who have been following my trajectory, who know about my work, who know about how cool and how exciting my results are. And I think cultivating those letter writers early on so that more people other than your advisor actually are having people beyond your advisor who you talk to on a regular basis, who know about your research, who can write you a good, strong letter of recommendation is really important.
Thank you. Valerie, do you want to follow up that a little bit?
Yes, just a brief follow-up, and that is with what Armando was saying in terms of your letter writers. I would also add, you can utilize, for example, your advisor if they have contacts at places that are your top priority, your top 4 or 5 places where you definitely want to go. It makes a difference also when they reach out to their contacts to say that I have a really great student who's on the job market, would be a really good fit, and they can reach out also to their network. And so that goes along with what Armando was saying in terms of having people be aware of your work and utilizing that network to make some personal contacts. And that could be personal contacts in industry and in academia, as well as at national labs. It all makes a big difference. And the second thing that I wanted to add, and that was while you're at conferences, utilize that time to network. And for example, with people, at the university or at the sites that are high on your list, take time to meet with them at the conference to have a good conversation and invite them to your talk session where you're giving the presentation. So those are some things to add.
Thank you for that. I want to remind folks listening that feel free to keep asking questions. We'll have a few in the pipeline, but we'll try to answer those as much as possible. I will just finish this round by saying a couple of things, reinforcing what Kristin was saying. In this day and age, your digital footprint matters. So it's not just your application, but also what happens when someone searches your name on the internet. So I won't even talk about cleaning up your social feed, just we're all grown-ups. But you should have a digital portfolio. If you're proud of your code, you need to have a GitHub page. If you are a designer, an HCI person, you have to have videos or demos of what you're showing up. If you're doing mathematics or some more theoretical stuff, have your papers well highlighted or have them summarized in a way that a lay person can actually understand the value of it or why they're important. So the way, again, you communicate is important, but the digital world we live right now demands that you are conscious of what is your presence there. I will be, I'll leave it there because all the other answers were fantastic. Let me pivot to some of the questions online. We have a few that are more lengthy than others. I'll go with this one that is brief. I think we can answer this one briefly, but it's important. The question says, a large proportion of graduate students' research and progress has been negatively affected by COVID. Are universities and/or MSR accommodating for these impacts during the hiring process? And I would probably say during the research process as well. Who wants to take this one? Valerie?
Yes, thanks.
All right.
And that is, so we're definitely understanding about what's happening in terms of the pandemic and COVID-19, in terms of the impact on research, and especially the case for caregivers, because that's a really hard task in terms of managing everything in terms of research as well as caregiving. So we are definitely understanding, and I think, you know, recognizing that the pandemic impacts each person individually. In your cover letter, that's a good place to note some of the impacts that it's had on you, because that's a place, your cover letter is a place for you to share your narrative. You know, you have your CV, and for universities, you have a teaching statement. You also have a diversity statement. Your cover letter is that opportunity to bring everything together and to talk about you personally. And depending upon how COVID has impacted you, that's a good opportunity to share that experience there. And we're all very understanding because it's impacting everyone in very unique ways.
Armando, do you want to take a follow-up on this one? Your microphone is still muted.
Yeah, I would just like to second that. I think everybody is very aware of how difficult this year has been. We are making some pretty big changes to the interview process. For example, just to account for the fact that we're not going to be able to bring people to campus for the usual interview, for the very traditional interview, for example. And I agree with Valerie that I think the cover letter is a good place where, especially if there are special circumstances, particular responsibilities that you've had to shoulder because of the pandemic, I think that's a good place to talk about them.
Kristin, you're nodding. Do you have?
Yeah. Well, I would just add additional perspective, which is that you know, university hiring, you know, may be impacted. I mean, some friends have told me, you know, lines are frozen, and when the economic situation is uncertain, that affects hiring in industry. So that you know, global, or you know, the economic consequences of COVID, they are hitting, you know, the computer science research area as well. Maybe not in as extreme ways as other arenas where, you know, musicians can't play concerts and restaurants are closed and things like that, but it is affecting, you know, the industry. And so I think we have to temper our expectations as well. And that has historically been true. I mean, I have many colleagues over the years that have said, oh, well, when I got out of grad school in the 80s, there was a recession and it was hard to get hired. And so I did something else. And so just know that that's the background, that's not, you know, personal to you at all. But something that I think is really different here, which I think is really interesting and in some ways exciting, is that COVID has forced a change into kind of the research environment, academic and industry, that I didn't expect, and which in many ways I had been pushing for other reasons for years. And that is, when conferences go online, it makes it much more accessible to a wider range of people. You don't have to have the financial resources to travel somewhere for the conference in order to attend. You don't necessarily have to be invited. There's more, you know, open access to these talks. A lot of talks and things are getting recorded. It gives you an opportunity, if you can record a presentation that you're giving, to add it to your digital profile. Like, Gonzalo said. So I think that there are a lot of opportunities, and I think the flip side of that, we're all dealing with, working from home, which is isolating. If you are a caregiver or if you have children that are not able to go to school right now, this is a huge burden and really affecting, people's work lives and ability to join, Zoom meetings and things like that. But I think there are resources that are being diverted to help, with caregiving, since resources aren't required as much for travel right now. And not traveling as much, frankly, is also good for the planet, for environmental reasons. And so I think both in our research, conference environment, I think we're seeing a change, which might not actually just go back to the way things were. I think people will recalculate the benefits of doing things in various ways. And we're going to see a lot more, conferences continue to be online and people to interact. And so what I've seen is younger colleagues starting kind of new seminars online to allow for people to interact and give their talks that they normally would have been traveling around the country, visiting universities. So I think if you are able, joining those kinds of seminars, offering to give talks, which could be recorded and distributed, that's kind of the flip side. That's the upside of what's happening here. So look for creative ways to take advantage and to, don't waste a crisis, as they say.
And
yeah, to go ahead, Armando.
Well, just to add a little bit to that, I think this has forced a change in the landscape, right? And so, whereas before, for example, you could count on, I'm just going to show up at the top conference in my field, and all the senior people are going to be there, and all my colleagues are going to be there, and I'll just be able to talk to all of them. And now you can't quite count on that. The flip side is that it's much easier to, for example, write to a colleague at another university and say, hey, I'm doing this work. Could I give a virtual talk to your research group, for example? And it's a much easier thing to do than to go and travel somewhere and give talks. And so I think there are trade-offs, and I think taking advantage of the positives, right? Taking advantage of the fact that it is easier to visit people virtually, that it is easier to attend more conferences, to make up for some of the loss of contact.
Yeah, and I wanted to provide maybe a final context to all of this, and I don't know if I'm reading this right, but from the question, even though the amount of digital acceleration or transformation that COVID has caused, we call it the flip side, I absolutely acknowledge the pain and the hardships that the pandemic has created on others, not only on ways of communicating, but all your research may have been completely put on hold. And you see your whole career put on ice, and you're wondering yourself, am I going to ever be able to graduate now that I cannot do research studies anymore for another year? What's going to happen with my funding? And I absolutely hear you and I see you. What I can say is that all I see is absolute understanding from industry across the board about the hardships people are having, and people are really moving literally mountains trying to accommodate for people's personal circumstance, make sure that they can still progress both at their job and their careers. So I know that we cannot solve every problem or put a balm on every pain, but I can tell you from firsthand witness that places like Microsoft and other universities that I've seen, they really are doing the best they can. So there's to that. We're 5 minutes ahead from the end of the panel. There's one question that from the others that I haven't asked. It says, the choice of industry over academia seems dependent on the field one wants to work on. For certain specific areas, such as quantum computing, it is more exciting to be in industry where there are several people working in the same domain, as opposed to working in a small academic group. Particularly, several groups and research experiments are actively mentor graduate students, and therefore, the student interaction component is not completely missing. It seems to be an argument about academia and industry not being that dissimilar. So what is your reaction to that? That the choice of academia versus industry may have been made for you already, depending on the topic you're working on. Will you agree with that? Will you disagree? Who wants to take that?
So I can say a little bit about that. I think. Oh, sorry. I think Valerie raised her hand.
Oh, no. You go ahead, Armando.
All right. Well, so I think there are different opportunities if you are in industry versus if you are in academia, and I think it's useful to take advantage of where you are. If you know, for example, in machine learning, people in industry right now, especially at places like Google, for example, have a huge advantage of just availability of equipment and data sets, right? And they're able to do things that are very difficult to do in academia, right? On the other hand, it also means that if you are in academia, maybe you want to avoid those things that really require the massive compute resources, and take a step back and think, well, is that really where we want to be going as a field? Are there things that we could be doing that wouldn't require hundreds of GPUs and TPUs to complete? So I think you really want to take advantage of where you are and the resources that are available to you where you are. For example, in academia, you have the advantage that it's a lot easier to access people from a broad range of disciplines, right? Which gives you an advantage to do things that might be more interdisciplinary. So I think that's something useful to keep in mind.
I want to keep a round robin of shorter answers. I want to try to fit as many answers as we can in the time we have. So Valerie, what do you have got here?
I would just say each industry, academia, national labs, each has unique aspects. I think, you know, so industry, you can have a large group of people focused on a particular project for a long duration of time, whereas academia, you're looking at students. You can have a group of faculty, but you're looking at students, and students are there for a PhD degree in a research topic. So that's, you know, 4 to 6 years. At the national labs, I think national labs are unique in that the instruments that you have at the national labs present a unique aspect as well, in the facilities. In terms of access to resources, I would say, for example, access to high performance computing. Even in academia, you can get access to high performance computing through the national labs, through NSF, centers that are in place. So I would say each one has unique aspects. Look at what you would like to do and take advantage of that, and know that collaboration is also an opportunity. So if you're at a university, you can collaborate with industry. You can also collaborate with a national lab. So opportunities are there in all aspects.
Let's pass the mic to Kristin in a minute, because we're short on time.
That's okay. You can just skip me for this one. Go ahead to the next question.
All right. So then we're going to do a very power round robin in 4 words or less. What is the worst mistake you can make on your application package? I'm going to go first. Bad letters of reference. Then
addressing the person you want to hire you with an inappropriate title, such as Mrs. Lauter. Can't tell you how often that happens.
Or I get my name misspelled. That doesn't work. Armando, Valerie, your take.
Okay, I would say typos. Go through things. Yeah, so I'm just going to stop there. Typos on your package.
All right, Armando, bring it home. What's your take?
So picking the right letter writers is crucial. Make sure that these are people who know you and who know your work.
All right, those are more than 4 letters, but you're 4 words. But you're Okay, I want to thank everybody for being so kind and generous this time and answering the questions. I think we answered most of them, if not all. So big round of applause to all of you. Now, for the last minute, Neil, my partner in crime for today, and I will like to thank all of the attendees for sticking with us. Some of you very early on, the ones that tune in for the East Coast Labs presentations. I don't know, Neil, if you want to give a few words for attendees.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank everyone for joining us. It's been really nice just to spend this time with you. I wanted to thank also our guests from our fireside chats to our panel, and once again thank Sarah and Raya for organizing, and for the tech team for keeping this all going smoothly. So thanks again, everyone. Yeah,
and let's remember tomorrow we have a wonderful series of events as well for a second day where Mary Morris will MC and show you all the wonderful things that the panels and MSR has to offer. So again, thank you. Stay safe. Wash your hands. You know, all the good things.
Thank you for organizing this.
This is great. Thank you.
Thank you.